the year. So this is one of a series event, more to come. So on the agenda today, you probably saw this when you registered. So a couple of introductions. I leave the presenters today introduce themselves. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rhys Lewis. I'm a director at a company called Rovisto, and I'm the chair for the UK BIM Alliance Wales team as well. So that's me. And today, pleased to be joined by Nigel Davis, who also wears more hats than I can count. And Nigel will introduce himself, talking really around the Back to BIM Basics study and survey that's ongoing at the moment, which is great and brought us to where we are today to talk about the series and what we're going to be doing together, the BIM Alliance Wales and CIOB. We're then joined by our guest speaker today from Boise and Massey, that's going to talk about a project or a number of projects, but really their strategic approach to the topic in discussion today. We want to hear your feedback. So I think a key message from myself and the team at the Alliance is the Alliance is yourselves. So please ask questions. We love to hear your comments and feedback and be part of future events. So Gerald, who's also the chair for CIOB in Wales, will host then a roundtable where we want to hear your questions to any of us and just open up the conversation to everybody today. So a couple of quick things before we make a start. So I can't hear anybody in the background right now. So just if you do happen to notice your mic is unmuted, please just mute that unless you're asking a question. And as I said, we'd love to hear your questions. So if you could put those into the chat dialogue at the bottom, so we know who you are and who it's directed to. If you could just confirm the company you work for and who that question is going to, that would be great. Makes my job and Gerald's job a little easier. And we like easy. Everything today has been recorded. So after the event, in the next couple of days, I'm hoping we'll be able to get an email out to you where we'll be able to share the slides and also the recording itself for you to share with peers, colleagues, and others in industry as well. I use Twitter. I don't know if everybody else on the call listening today is, but we would also like you to share this event using hashtag collaboration is key via Twitter or LinkedIn if you so wish. That would be really useful just to help us extend our network, if you like, so others can see what's going on. So if you use that hashtag, you'll see myself. I know Nigel will also be sharing some of the messages from today via social media. So please do that. And again, thank you for joining us today. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Mr. Nigel Davis. So let me stop sharing my screen firstly.
And let me get mine, shall I?
Yes, please, Nigel.
And you should be okay now.
Yep, we've got it. Great. Over to you, Nigel.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Rhys Lewis. It's really nice to be the special guest here on the UK, or one of the special guests on the UK BIM Alliance Wales session, just across from the river over in the southwest of England here. I'm based in Bath, and I'm just going to take 5 minutes just to give a little bit of overview of one of the campaigns or initiatives that we've got on in the UK BIM Alliance at the moment, which is the Back to BIM Basics campaign. And what this is about is understanding where we are as an industry and how we've moved forward in the last number of years. There have been recently a number, over the last few years as well, plenty of reports on how BIM is actually developing in the UK and what still needs to be done to help adoption. And one of the things we do, as all of us as the UK BIM Alliance, is try to spread that word around the industry to help people understand best practice and ways of doing things. And two of those reports actually triggered some thoughts inside of the UK BIM Alliance, in particularly the communities. This one, the Nbs Annual Bim Report, actually the 10th one from 2020, and the interoperability expert group led by the Construction Innovation Hub. There were some basic stories that come out of all of these reports, and you can see some of the summaries there. which say the same thing again, is the fact that that there is a lack of skills in the industry and people don't understand exactly what BIM is. And small firms can't justify the expense. And then if you look at the top barriers to BIM as published by the NBS report there, you'll see, okay, that there's no client demand. But the main ones there are lack of in-house expertise, lack of training, cost. The projects we work on are too small. The story is the same no matter which report you go to. And so what the UK BIM Alliance has been trying to do over the last few years is actually try and bring this down into helpful guidance. So, you know, originally we had the British Standards 1192 that started to set out the way of exchanging information on projects. That became ISO 19650. But let me be a little bit controversial. People just aren't interested in standards. So what the UK BIM Alliance has done, framework actually has done, is put together a series of guidance that help implement that and help people understand in their practices what the implications of these standards are. So rather than going away and reading the dry standard, you kind of understand this and read through it, and it starts to apply to your specific discipline, what you're doing and your role on a project. But even with that, we're bombarded with non-realistic terminology, terminology that people don't use every day. We've got all of the acronyms, the TLAs across the industry that it seems like a little hidden language all of itself that nobody can really understand. And then we come on to the other terms: lead appointing party, common data environments, digital twins, that just simply aren't understood. And not only are they not understood by the general populace, they're also not entirely agreed with by the experts as well. This is something that came out of a Twitter conversation to try and explain how information requirements actually go together on a project, and there were different expectations of what that meant. What we're trying to do as an industry is trying to break that down and get back to understanding the basics of BIM and what they're all about. And so what happened was, here's a quick diagram of the various communities around the countries. Each of us were talking in turn about trying to get back to the fundamentals and trying to explain to our memberships what exactly BIM is all about, and getting away from this idea that it's a technology and getting back to what it actually is, and that's managing information on a project. And yes, that's going to be digital information, but actually trying to get back to it. And what we found was, having conversations, all of us in the same all of us in different regions were actually having exactly the same thoughts. We needed to get back and engage with those who are either new to BIM or are on their journey and still having trouble trying to get through to the digital transformation and trying to make their practices understand exactly what it's all about. So we decided to take actually the regional communities out of it and come back to an overall approach and think, what can we do to get this message out across everybody? Where can we go to get this confusion just totally wiped off the board and get back to what we're actually trying to achieve here? And so we came up with a series of questions. We came up with those questions that we're asked all the time, either by our membership or by people at work or you know, collaborators that we work with. What is BIM? You ask 10 different people what BIM is, you will get 10 different answers, which while that helps to understand exactly where we are as an industry, it doesn't help people understand exactly what it is. Why should they adopt it? Back in the early days, back in the 90s and the start of the 21st century, we had a lot of information on this about what the benefits of adopting BIM were and what kind of processes you need to do to get there. And then moving on from that, the practical application. How do I implement BIM? What's the right software to use? And then most importantly, how do I effectively manage my data? So the way we actually decided to do that was actually start to talk to practitioners out there, people who are either doing this, they're new to this, they've had problems, they understand. We have commissioned a series of videos, short videos, to be honest, bite-sized videos that help people talk to their peers about what BIM actually is in terms of their practice. So what we've done, we've gone out there and we've asked for loads of volunteers. We have a few, and if there's anybody in this call who would be interested in taking part, I'll give you my details at the end, because we can always do with more. But what we're doing is putting together a series of very short explanatory videos that explain these 5 questions in the words of practitioners, your peers, concentrating specifically on SMEs, to actually start to say that the people who know what BIM is, the people on these kind of calls and webinars and conferences all the time, they're pretty much the people who are the converted, the experts. We need to get beyond that. We need to get out to the 5-person outfits who work down the hill from me here in Bath, who would never come onto one of these calls, but it's as important for them to know how the information management process fits into their projects, whether that's a house extension or it's a 26-kilometre sewer run through London. It doesn't matter the size or type of company, it's all important to them. So what we're planning to do is to get these videos recorded and then launch them through a series of virtual events. But the key quote there, as you'll see on the screen, is it's actually by the people, for the people. Us self-proclaimed experts, we can lecture all we want, but until we actually start getting the message across in language that people understand, we are never going to break through the barrier and see it as business as usual. So that's a really brief, I've only got 5 minutes here, and I've been on here a while already. That's a brief overview of what it's about. Where we are at the moment is we're actually just in the final processes of getting the first set of videos through. So by a week on Friday, we will have our first set of videos recorded, and these aren't high professional quality videos. These are trying to reflect the situation we find ourselves in the world. They're recorded on mobile phones, sat there doing a bit of screen time, reading the questions through and just answering it from your own perspective. What we're then doing is taking those and editing them down and putting them into a bit of an voiceover session to help explain it. They will get published across many different platforms to do that. So that's the first set. We're then expecting a second set through on the 18th of June. And I would say if there's anybody out there who would be willing to take part, this is the kind of deadlines that we'll be working to if you're willing to put your thoughts and ideas down to help explain to the industry. By the end of June, the committee on this would have gone through and worked out the storyboards and got the sound bites out of this that we needed to, prepared scripting, and then through July and August, these will actually going out to a video creation company. They will then be produced, and hopefully towards the latter half of September, October, we should see some dates up here for these launch events. So it's a real summary of where we are. But the important thing is it's trying to get away from all this technical talk and back to actually trying to understand what it is we need to do as an industry to actually accept this. There's my contact details, and whoever's got the microphone.
Just a reminder, guys. Sorry, Nigel.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
So there's the contact details. Get in touch with me through those. That's my Twitter handle at Nigel Davis, or you can get in touch with myself or the engagement at the UK BIM Alliance directly. I see that Pam was actually on the meeting today. Get in touch with us. Let us know if you want to help out. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Nigel. That was great. So firstly, just a reminder with your mics. I think as we come towards the tail end of your presentation, and somebody's mic popped on. So unless, of course, you've got something you'd like to share, then we'd love to hear that. So Nigel's details were there. As he mentioned, if you'd like to be part, then please get in touch. This is about you know, all of us, not just a certain group of people. So please get in touch with Nigel. We'll send a reminder of your details as well, Nigel, via the email that goes out. So, okay, on to our next speaker then today, Mr. Ian Massey from Boys Construction. So, hello, Ian.
Yep. Hi, I'll just share my screen now.
Yes, please.
Can everyone see that?
We can. So, over to yourself, Ian.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me to talk. Very much appreciated. I'm going to give you a quick overview of kind of Bouygues' view of BIM via a strategic approach to our projects. So I'm going to give a quick introduction myself, quick overview of what BIM is. Again, as Nigel was alluding to, there's still a misperception of what BIM is, some misinterpretations and blockers that are again within the industry, and a bit about the BIM, the strategic approach. So I've got about 15 years experience. I've worked for Finley Breton, a small holocaust precast company. Then I worked for Arups, doing structural CAD, then moved into product design and facade design, then into the BIM realm. Then I'm seconded to Crossrail for a couple of years to be a BIM and 4D coordinator for them. And then I moved back to the region at Balfour Beatty as a regional BIM manager for them, and then on to obviously Bouygues now for Region 1, which is the North, the Midlands, Southwest and Wales. So I've worked in essence through all the 4 different kind of tiers, from supply chain to designer to client and then to contractor. So I've got a good understanding of all the kind of challenges involved within the process. With regards to Bouygues, obviously I'm a regional BIM manager and information manager lead, essentially responsible for ensuring we deliver BIM as required, moving forward in the industry, new technologies, new techniques, sharing best practices, troubleshooting, etc., etc. So just trying to move the company and our supply chain and clients along the path with us, and get the benefit for that on our projects. So BIM, as again Nigel alluded to, it's process. It's about managing information, yes, in a digital environment, but it's all about collaborating and standardizing that approach and to get the maximum benefit of that. So process used by people and obviously supported by technology behind. That is my view of what BIM is. It's managing, collaborating, organizing that information. The BIM model itself, again, I think it again is intelligent Lego. It's all the blocks need to be there to make that perfect building and to make it work. And again, what you've then got behind the scenes is that kind of smart folder, O&M manuals and technical information all associated with those objects. So you should, in the real holy grail world of BIM, be able to access everything and all that information via the BIM model, via the common data environment and information management. That is the holy grail of where we're alluding to go, but that is again way off in the future at the moment for sure. Some misperceptions again, just 3D modeling and CIOB, asset information at the end of the project. It's much more than that. Collaboration and better quality of information. BIM will take more time. Again, it will at the start when you're starting to learn what BIM is and the tools and how to work with it. But longer term or even short, medium term, you will become much more productive and get better quality information out of using BIM on your projects. Doesn't add benefit. Again, my argument against this is people do not understand it, or they're again just pretending to do BIM. Just because you can do a 3D model, that is not BIM. There's much more to it. It's about collaborating and managing yourself in a much more aligned process. BIM will cost more. Yes, there again will be upfront costs. You've got to invest in computer technology, infrastructure. But again, they can be controlled if you approach a strategic approach to implementing BIM. And again, you will recruit that longer term. And I hear this many times. People are still saying it's a flash in the pan. It's going to go away. I mean, BIM is it's an evolutionary step for the industry. Drawings onto CAD, CAD to BIM, and BIM is information. And it will become business as usual. A lot of these practices are becoming standard. But again, it's all about improving those practices to get the maximum benefit as a collective. So some of the blockers, it's not clearly identified what those BIM deliverables are. It's very, very crudely put together. Roles and responsibilities are not clearly defined and referenced in contracts, misinterpretation, or not actually being specifically required to do some bit of the BIM. The approach is ad hoc. There's not that collaborative single kind of process mentality. Various BIM roles are cross purposes. So again, misunderstanding. Am I doing this? Am I not doing this? Who's responsible, etc., etc. Everyone has to come to the party. Now, again, what usually happens is it's just the BIM person that needs to do the BIM. BIM is information. BIM is collaboration. Everyone that's involved in a project can form some element of the BIM process, be it viewing technical drawings, commenting on technical drawings, be it the BIM model, be it document control. Everyone forms what BIM is on a project. And again, this is a key element, again, Nigel alluded to. Few have knowledge or experience of the benefits of BIM. So how can they actually be delivered? There's a severe lack of that knowledge and understanding. People perceive it as a challenge and as a hindrance to the project. And again, that all becomes from experience and learning and implementing it correctly. And again, a lot of the benefits of BIM are hidden. It's about efficiencies, it's about quality of information and sharing, getting the right information at the right time. And therefore, again, BIM as a process can easily be undermined because those benefits are not easily tangible and therefore, easily supported or easily argued against of implementing BIM. Because what are the real benefits? Where are those numbers that prove that you can save 100k, 200k, or whatever it may be, or even £100 on your project? It's about efficiencies of the process. So the strategic approach. My advice here really is set the goals and objectives, be very precise on what you want from the project, and don't just do things for the sake of doing them. CIOB, for instance, with asset data to every single object, who is the client going to use any of that information? If they're not going to use that information, then it doesn't need to be done. So, be very strategic and organized of what your goals are and what the outcomes are. Create a strategy for success. Again, be realistic and identify those potential problems or challenges. And that could be more training, that could be extra support, that could be leading a hand to others, being proactive. And ensure integrity and quality of those BIM goals. This is another issue within the industry, is people don't trust the BIM, as it were, of providing them quality. So that could be wrong information within the BIM models, that could be lack of coordination, that could be misinterpretation of a naming structure, for instance. So again, regularly assessing those BIM goals and providing further training and that guidance and support. And they are key themes in my view: training, guidance and support, working together, collaborating to make that a success. And then we should start to see and enjoy those benefits of what BIM can give to a project. So there's two sections kind of BIM strategy, as it were: client BIM requirements and strategy, the asset information requirements, the AIR, the EIR, and other BIM documentations, essentially what the client wants at the end of this project. And then for BYUK, BOIGs, we've got two kind of sections: BIM Essentials and BIM Innovations. Essentially, the essentials are our minimum standards, and I will come to those in a second, and innovations are new processes or new tools that we would like to case study and trial on a project to see if there is any benefit. So going to Pencoitry School is one of our projects that we're in the process of delivering at the moment. This was defined as a BIM level 2 as constructed BIM model handover with CIOB information. The client provided an EIR, but as with all this documentation, it's open to interpretation and different people's knowledge and understanding of what BIM is, and therefore it can be misunderstood. So my advice here again is to engage and discuss those requirements. And in this instance, we had 2 client workshops to go through this. We did an exchange tracker to track those comments and deliverables, and then we finalized what those requirements and deliverables were. So this can apply again in different tiers of the construction industry relative to what you are contributing to the process. So read, understand, discuss, and then define. And from those discussions, 6 BIM documentations were output. I won't go into obviously the details, but this describes different processes and different requirements within the project. So it's clearly defined, clearly understood, and that again then will feed further down through the supply chain. The second part of our BIM strategy, project strategy, is the essentials and innovations. So this essentially is our internal BYUK strategy. We've understood what the client's requirements are and what their strategy requirements are. BYUK have other requirements and processes for the benefit of design and construction, not just the handover, as it were, of the project. So we go through a process, a bit like this Excel sheet at the bottom, of defining what those BIM goals are, define who's responsible for that BIM goal content, who's responsible for the output, is any further training required, and what are those exact output deliverables. So going quite granular, but being very specific about what we're aiming to get out of this and what we want to do. So we're not just doing BIM as a process and as a tool. We identify what we want out of that. And again, it's reviewed and completed during the tender period and updated at each REBA stage. So as the project progresses, those BIM goals and deliverables may change depending on what is the benefit for that project. So the BIM Essentials are, as mentioned, are our minimum standards. In essence, they are 14 BIM model authors from our designers and supply chain, and BIM processes, including collaboration, clash detection, health and safety, and so forth. So the 14 BIM model authors are listed there on the left. Obviously, they are not required if they're not within the design, but in essence, they are our minimum kind of requirements that we've had on our projects for, I would say, the last 5 years. So we have been doing this and we have been doing it successful, and we are improving every single time. And that goes from obviously the client, that goes from myself as a contractor, and then obviously the designers and supply chain. I've noticed every single year and every project we do, things are moving forward, not as fast as obviously we would all hope, but they are getting better. But that again comes from training, rediscussing, collaboration, and bringing people along the path. And as you can see there at the bottom here on the left, we are starting to explore and develop other supply chain members, you know, from cladding, curtain walling, balustrading, windows, suspended ceilings. And we want to get into the stud work, lintels and wind posts, because these are the real details of, as a contractor, responsible for building, they're the issues that cause us challenges on site. So we want to get them coordinated, detailed, approved, and at a level of sophistication and maturity that we're able to ensure the build is accurate. And as it says there on the bottom right, it's continuity and full integration of the supply chain. It's bringing people into this fold, helping them into the BIM realm, and getting them to have the benefits as well. Well, it's obviously us as a contractor. So an example of this is Pencoydry School, with all the different parties bringing a BIM model and federating those together. So as you can see there, lots of different parties. We've been doing this for several years, and it works, and there is benefit for everyone. Some BIM essentials, the processes. So BIM model cloud collaboration, cloud coordination issue management, clash detection, health and safety, builders work, passive fire protection modeling, coordination sheets, and visualization. They are our core processes, again, that we have on our projects. Some are standard as per what BIM level 2 is defined, but others are our minimum requirements because we know they bring benefit to the project and to the build, and even to the client, to ensure that we're providing a quality product at the end of this. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of a couple of these processes. Cloud collaboration, common data environments, the terminology used for effectively hosting and sharing information. We use 2. Revitso and 4 projects is Bouygues kind of common data environments. They're used for cross purposes, but they obviously overlap. Essentially, the 3D modelers can upload 2D and 3D information directly to Revitso via the plugin, but they will also issue milestone information to our common data environment for projects. Supply chain, who only do 2D information, issue to 4 projects, but that information is then pushed into Revitso. So what that gives us is the same information within both common data environments at the same time. So they've both got different benefits of what those common data environments are, but the process is defined, the process is being kept and managed, and therefore we can ensure that we can get access to that information at the right time, and it's the right information. Builders work, very, very challenging and a problem on all our projects. And these are the typical questions and issues we have. Who defines the hole? Who owns the hole? What is the size? What service goes through? Where is it located? How many holes do we have? And, you know, who's approved it? And does it meet the fire requirements? The normal solution that everyone kind of gives is we'll provide you a bigger hole, and therefore we can ensure that your services will fit through that hole. That is not good enough in this day and age. And BIM and the BIM process can refine that and make that better. And a key element of this is ensuring passive fire stopping compliance. You know, bigger holes, does that have an issue with regards to obviously fire compliance? Is that fire protection stopping approved? Builders work has a massive factor into all of those. So again, BYUK, we've developed a process. We implement this on our projects. And again, an example here, Pencoydry School. We've got a detailed process of how this flows. In essence, it's a BIM process where all builders work penetrations are modelled and approved between the required parties, so architectural, M&E, structural, etc. A builders work model is produced, as you can see here with the little red arrows. That is then scheduled out and shared between team members. Ongoing coordination and comments are recorded and incorporated within the BIM model elements. So let's just say there's a builders work here that was too high or too small. the M&E would put a comment in there saying this needs to increase, and that would then be obviously discussed and approved, and that builders work penetration would be increased in size. And then the final step would be approval of that builders work. So whoever is interacting with that builders work penetration will tick that builders work object within a Revit schedule, a Revit environment, to say they've approved it. Once everyone's approved it, the flags go from red, which means not approved, to green. And that is a really good process. It's really started to feed some real benefits to our projects to get better builders work, less rework, less coordination, better coordination, and doing it on time. And the output of that builders work process is builders work detailed drawings. So you can see green holes are approved, red holes are not approved. You've got all the information to do with that builders work, XYZ coordinates, the size, the unique ID, finished floor to underside of builders work, etc, etc, etc. All that information is contained within that builders work element and able to be shared between the team. Feeding on from builders work process is a fire acoustic builders work drawing. So what we've done here is taken the architectural model, which has obviously the partitions and the fire ratings and acoustic ratings, the builders work model, combine them and produce a new drawing which captures the makeup of the walls, where the builders work are, what the fire and acoustic ratings are, what the sizes are. And this has really helped again with fire compliance, because whereas before you'd have to search through specs and drawings and many drawings and schedules, we've collated that information into a singular place, which provides real benefit for the fire stopping parties. So on to passive fire stopping modelling. We, again, BY UK, have started to request these to be all modelled and detailed within our projects. You know, from casting collars to dampers to collars to sleeves, to coatings, etc, etc. So again, starting to understand what that fire strategy and passive fire stopping requirements are within the project. That then feeds into an approval process, which again is effectively color coding objects depending on their status. So if you saw a red object, it would mean not approved. An amber object would mean that it's been approved following that kind of builders work designer process between designers and supply chain. The green would mean that it's been approved and comments incorporated between BY UK design manager and quality manager and the fire specialist. And then obviously onto site would be blue. We would be tracking the installation quality of this. And once that's been signed and approved, we would then obviously tick that blue. And what we aim to do is attach before and after photos, snagging, trackers, and witnessing and sign off, all with that BIM object. So we've effectively got a fire compliance report, all detailed. Health and safety, again, BIM objects modeled as hazards, linked directly to risk registers, exported into Revitso, the same information in 3 different places at the same time. Everyone has visibility of those CDM and health and safety issues. And then we're again looking at the next steps about color coding these issues depending on where they are in the approval status and what subject matter they are. On to innovations very quickly. So the essentials, as mentioned, are kind of our day-to-day processes. Innovations on new ideas. So these can form the idea from 4D to site progress reporting to Holobuilder and others. So we detail what they are, we KPI them, and then we obviously implement them to see what the benefits are. And very quickly, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. Holobuilder is a 360 photographic cloud tool to enable you to take site photographs, upload them into a cloud, interact with the BIM model in that environment, and effectively have a visual representation of site progress and as-built information from remote locations, i.e. your phone or your computer. So you can walk the site without getting to site. This has been really powerful during COVID because obviously sites need to control personnel and interaction. This has enabled a lot of hours to be saved and those safety issues incorporated. We've also been able to do Holobuilder versus BIM model comparisons. So in this instance, we had the construction M&E model. We went on to site with Holobuilder, did a comparison, and they've changed single layer trays to 4 stack, and pipework's been mirrored in the corridor. Without having kind of Holobuilder and that easy access, this could have been missed. And we sat the subcontractor down, re-engaged with them, went through the process again, that if things like this obviously are happening, they need to be discussed and agreed between obviously the design team, and then obviously the client if relevant. So it's helped enforce proper process. Site change requests, another issue, a bit like what I alluded to here, really off the Holobuilder. We started to implement a formal process using Revitso to incorporate everyone from the site team to the supply chain to the designers and design manager and the QS if need be. So we've got a kind of holy grail, as it were, of those site change requests captured on site live, discussed within the office or your home, but everyone involved in that process. So to summarize, what a strategy should be: awareness and understanding, promote this within your company and your teams and share knowledge. Define a BIM project strategy and implement it. Two of those elements are standard practice, what you do as your day-to-day. What are your new ideas and innovations? For innovations, you pick a pilot project, don't do it across the board, identify very specific case study projects to do that on. As with all this, BIM monitor, report and train and support, that needs to happen all the time. Adopt and lesson learn, what worked, what didn't, what needs to be refined, and then you feed that all the way back into awareness and understanding again. And that cycle just regurgitates every single time. And what should happen is your innovation and ideas will move into standard practice, i.e. it becomes business as normal. So some very quick tips for success, just to wrap up. Ensure documentation is in place and agreed and understood. Really important during tender period. I have a lot of times where BIM documentation is issued, no one reads it or understands it. We come to a contract and then there's lots of issues there. So, you know, engage and try to understand that. And if you don't understand it, I always advise people just ask questions, shout, ask, what does this mean? How does this work? What do I need to do for this? And people are starting to do that. BIM onboarding workshops. This should happen on every project. Bring people into a workshop, discuss those requirements, discuss the process, explain it and collaborate, work together. BIM progress reporting to ensure that integrity, and communication, support and collaboration. Eliminate silo working. BIM is a collaborative process, design's a collaborative process, construction is a collaborative process, and again, retraining and guidance where needed. And again, BIM will only work if we all work together and we all work in an alignment of our processes and we understand what we're supposed to be doing and what we're supposed to be delivering. At the moment, there is still too much miscommunication between all of those processes. And just to summarize, are you too busy to improve? I mean, again, you know, BIM is here to stay. It is a tool that will add benefit. Yes, there is challenges, but we can overcome them together. And that's it for me.
Wow. Yeah, well done, Ian. I think you just under time, pal. So covered lots there. That was definitely an inspirational look at the journey from Boyd. So I think you covered lots, and there'll be lots of questions that Gerald can feed your way. So yeah, really exciting to see the good stuff that you and the team are doing, especially on a local project. So whereabouts is that exactly? I've noticed a few people on the chat aren't actually from Wales, which is great. Alan from over in Ireland. I think Jeff is on as well. So whereabouts is the project, first of all?
Barry.
I'm in Barry. Perfect.
Yeah, in Barry.
Sure, people won't know where it is now. So perfect. I'll hand over now to my colleague for the day, Gerald. Let's start the discussion, I guess. So I'll hand over to you, and I'll take a look in the question logs, just if there are any. But yeah, now is the time all to ask your questions. Fire away.
Thank you, Rhys, for that. Before I move to the Q&A session, I wanted to thank the speakers, Rhys, Nigel and Ian, for their valuable inputs. I also like to thank our partners, the UK BIM Alliance Wales, Bouygues UK and the Construction Wales Innovation Centre. Thanks also to Vicky for managing the event. Now is the time to ask questions, and I open it up to the virtual floor, but kindly ask you to introduce yourself, who you work for and who the question is directed at, please. Any questions, please?
There's one. Hands have been raised. Gavin Trailer.
Yeah, Gavin.
You need to unmute unmute him, I guess.
Hi guys, thanks very much. Really enjoyed the presentations this afternoon. They've been really interesting. Yeah, I'm Gavin Traylor. I'm from University of Wales, Trinity St David's. I'm a lecturer there, teaching on undergrad and postgrad in BIM skills. So this is right up my street. Just a question, Ian. Sorry, I'm going to pick on you. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is regarding kind of client involvement, and given the example of the school that you picked up in Barry, really impressive, really liked what's being talked about in terms of the pre-construction and construction phases. But how has this actually been adopted by the client from handover in terms of operations and maintenance? And how geared up are they, I guess?
So again, I think over the last few years, particularly the clients in Wales kind of actually got a march on, I would say, the English side. The BIM requirements were defined quite quickly and taken on board. But there is still a generic kind of lack, I would say, as you were kind of alluding to, of the clients really picking this up and running with it. I mean, there is some clients on the Bath, for instance, and Bristol universities that are picking up and running with this. We are working on Cardiff Innovation, and the client there has started to have a kind of interest in what BIM can provide. But again, it's still its kind of first few steps. It needs to move forward. So there is engagement and there is discussions, but it's a much bigger picture and a bigger challenge, I would certainly say, on the client side than what design and construction is at the moment. Okay.
I've got a follow-up question, slightly different, if that's okay, guys. I know we've got people from other parts of the UK and Ireland in the conversation, but just another comment to Ian really was regarding the SME marketplace within Wales and whether there was a limited pool available or whether you saw this as an opportunity to expand in terms of BIM.
Yeah, a bit of both actually. I mean the obviously the supply chain is limited. You know, it is a limited area, but that has actually been beneficial for us because we've worked with the same people a few times, and therefore the BIM is able to improve the process, and we've gone through that journey together. So there is opportunity obviously for new parties to come on board and you know, take up the BIM realm, but certainly with our existing supply chain, they have come along the journey with us and bought into it and gave it a good go on projects. So yeah, I'd say it's a bit of both, but more a benefit, I would say, because we've worked together for sure.
Excellent. Thanks all. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Gavin. Anybody else would like to ask a question?
Can I just add on to Gavin's point, Gerald, about sort of client engagement, if that's okay. So, and I suppose something that we'll mention is one of the next events now really is going to be having clients come to the table and share their pain points and challenges, so that, you know, people like Ian and others on the call can engage better with them. You know, this is a process that we all should benefit from, as it mentions from the title, BIM is for everybody. So what we really need to do is engage more with clients, and there's a couple of things going on whereby we're doing that. So yeah, more to come, and watch this space.
I have a question, if I may, and this is open to any of you to respond, please. With the introduction of the Building Safety Bill, how do you see the impact on BIM?
I can go first quickly. I mean, as you've seen, some of what we're doing already, passive fire protection, and obviously forms a massive element of that. So we've been doing that the last few years to incorporate that into our BIM digital realm, but also we're linking with our quality department as well to ensure that, you know, that information and that detail and that approval and such flows into the quality in the site realm, and therefore we're checking and approving and making sure that, you know, those particularly fire safety is really, you know, implemented and done correctly. Whereas, as we know from obviously Grenfell and so forth, it is not been done correctly and hasn't been checked and certified, etc., etc. So certainly our quality department is taking that on board, because that is particularly the main element, you know, ensuring it's on site correctly. But we've brought it much forward, you know, earlier in the process to ensure we get it detailed, understood, and, you know, correctly coordinated and signed off before we get to site.
Thank you, Ian. Nigel, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's the kind of thing that starts to act as a catalyst. You know, we can go on about all the technical adoption that we want in the world and how BIM is going to be productive until we've got that kind of impetus from government to actually make sure that we're implementing this type of data on our projects. We're always on kind of the back foot and you know, fighting the uphill battle. Those kind of initiatives, you know, we talk about the golden thread and all those kind of things, particularly on safety in buildings. That's where information really starts to take over and people realize the benefits. It's no longer BIM, it's project information management, and that's what it's all about in my eyes.
Yeah, thank you, Ian and Nigel. Any other questions from anybody on the floor? Well, I've actually got another one, if I may. This is for Rhys, if that's okay. Where do you believe the Welsh Government currently stands on the full implementation of BIM?
Oh, I think that's a big question. And probably everyone else on the floor can help with that. So I think it's education, really, and how we, you know, coming back to the first question, everyone, I think, could do with more education, and that message really needs to be shared out to the clients that are receiving the information that Ian mentioned right at the beginning. You know, what information are we going to give the client that is actually going to be useful? You know, they're going to be operating this asset, whatever it may be, for hopefully many years to come. So really, they need to be the ones. You know, I remember being on a presentation where, probably one of yours, Nigel, talking about starting with the end in mind, which I thought was great and always resonates with me when I speak to clients and project teams, is we need to help educate clients. And look, one thing that I get annoyed about, and yeah, one of the conversations Gavin and I have had, is a lot of clients already are, but there's still a lot that aren't. So big question. We just need to connect the dots, and I think that's part of our job, really, Gerald, is to let's connect you know, more of this high-level strategic stuff to the people on the shop floor. How do we do that? I'm still trying to work that out myself, but we try different approaches all of the time. But it's a collaborative effort that we all need to be part of. So there's probably different responses from, I know, Nigel, Gavin and Ian on that, but yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, before we pass that over, Anthony Brophy has very kindly put up a link, which I think would probably be certainly worth hitting on at some point. I wanted to ask one final question, and I suppose this is aimed at Ian, but also Gavin, because Gavin's from the education sector. My question is, what does the education and training sector need to do to enhance the learning and understanding of BIM? Is that something, Ian, you want to have a go at, or?
Where do we start? It's a bit like the client scenario, to be honest, as well. I found people who've had BIM degrees and so forth, again, have got the idea and the methodology and the theory behind, obviously, BIM. It's, you know, it's a degree, it's an education, but the reality is way different to what the theory is. So they come in with obviously enthusiasm and things should work exactly like this. Whereas, as we all know, the construction industry does not work like it should. And again, that's where BIM is obviously affected by that. It's trying to make things follow a process and a methodology, but because there's so many different parties, because there's so many contracts and politics and design elements and components involved, it's a huge challenge to get everyone on that same wavelength. So work experience, I can only advise work experience is obviously key. But again, that needs to be properly planned and implemented. We've had some grads and I don't believe we've given them enough of a detailed plan to really provide them the benefit of what BIM and the placement should do. I think that goes just as a general placement in the construction industry on work experience. I don't think we all do a good enough job of it. It's kind of the person over there, you know, let's just give them something quick to do rather than really thinking about it and providing that benefit. And I think if we as an industry could do that better, that will feed back into the graduates, and then it will then start to obviously cycle. Yes, technology will be picked up by the youth better because they have been brought up with that, but there's the whole experience side of construction and design, which can only come from years of being in the industry. So it's a challenge, but yeah, my view, work experience is a real key aspect there to provide real good physical benefit.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Does anybody else want to make Gavin? Do you want to say something about it?
No, I was just going to say good answer, Ian. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one, and obviously I've come from industry myself. I'm an architect, but I've been on the client side for Cardiff Council as well, so I have a kind of an overview of a lot of different angles for BIM, really. I think in terms of the education sector, it is a tricky one. I think experience on these projects and being able to see how this actually works in practice is, you know, that's with everything. Any degree that you're doing in construction, you learn the theory for it, but again, the practical experience is where it really counts, really. And I think is exactly the same for this. I mean, we've tried to introduce with us, it's not about the software. That's how I kind of start teaching with BIM, and I take him about why we draw. You know, we communicate. It's all about communication and information that we communicate, and then build it from there. And yes, we do have to look at the digital technologies that go with all this, but it's all about the communication, and that's what I try and get over. And I'm just pleased to see that all that is is through some of the presentations today as well. So. Yeah, good answer, Ian.
I'm going to jump in there, and I see there's a few more questions, but I'll be quick. And I wanted to mention you, Gavin, because it's your fault, really. I don't fault is the right word, why we're actually here. So Gavin and I go back a little bit, and he introduced me to Gareth and the team which led to the introduction to Gerald and the team at the CIOB. So, I mean, that's really helped us be able to collaborate and to bring these events to you. So thank you, Gavin, and you'll be part of hopefully one of our next events, looking at this from a client's perspective. Just one thing from me before we continue with questions, and I'm conscious of time, is if you've got a story that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it. So yeah, just ping myself and Gerald, and we'll have a chat with you and ensure that you fit into one of the next themes, which there'll be a few of those coming. I'm actually sharing my screen now, and I didn't notice I was previously whilst I was trying to live tweet at once. I'm not too very good at multitasking, but there is a link to some of the information I've been capturing and sharing on Twitter as well as reference, if you so wish. So with that, Jeff Chambers, hello.
All right, pal. Rhys.
Are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I've just got a quick question for Nigel. Talking about back to basics, talking about BIM in plain language, which is something that I totally agree with. We're going for our ISO 19650 accreditation next month. And I would just want an honest answer of how important do you think it is for us SME to have the accreditation status? I mean, when it comes to implementation internally, when I speak to our staff and I talk to them about appointed parties, lead appointed parties, I've completely lost them. And, you know, but my question is, do you think it's an advantage to have that accreditation status as a business?
The political answer is, I think anything that shows you are capable of following things that particularly clients would be interested in. Yes, it's going. You have to really have an educated client to understand what that actually means. My own personal recommendation would always be to look at the ISO 9000 accreditation and put your 19650 accreditation under that instead, because that means so much more to other people. And what it's doing, it's demonstrating your process is what you say it is. You know, people don't switch off to ISO 9000, they switch off to 19650, but you start talking about ISO accreditation, you know, 9000, and suddenly they're interested, they're sitting up. And we're working with a couple of architectural practices who do that. Rather than going for specifically 19650, they're building it under the whole QMS system.
Yeah, okay.
That's where it becomes serious. That would be my kind of take on it.
Okay. I agree with that. From a contractor point of view, with engaging with supply chain, it gives us some assurance that you're in that space of collaboration and information management, etc., etc. So it's not the be all and end all, as Nigel said. But it certainly gives us confidence that you're open to process and standardization and collaboration.
Yeah, so as a business, MECFS are definitely into that. But the one thing that takes up a lot of our time is assessing our own supply chain. You know, we're a tier 2 contractor. When you go, and this is no disrespect to anybody further on down the supply chain, when you get to the guys on site and say, well, BIM doesn't affect us, and then you're spending hours and hours training, filling out forms, educating, and that's where it's kind of holding us up a little bit, to be honest. But I'm probably going off slightly off.
But that is the challenge, though. That's exactly what you nailed. The challenge is everyone perceives it doesn't affect them, or they don't need to come to the party, and in some way, no matter which way that may be, whether it's a lot or a little, they can get benefit from the BIM, as it were, or contribute to the BIM. So I hate to say it, but that is the challenge within the industry. There are so many parties, so many people, so many different personalities, skill sets, knowledge. That is the challenge. It's a big old beast to try and get people into this kind of realm, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for your question, Jeff. We're actually just run out of time. So can I once again thanks Rhys, Ian, Nigel, Gavin and Vicky, and indeed all participants today, and wish you a rest of a good day.
Thanks, Gerald. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.